My name is Joe Penabianco, and I'm the President and CEO of Annie Mac Home Mortgage. First off, I'd like to thank you all for attending this session of Lunch and Learn. I think what we're going to review today, which I've already reviewed with our own sales force at our annual sales summit, is how to accomplish your goals and a lot of the reasons as to why we don't accomplish goals. In addition, I'm going to give you some life hacks on how to better goal accomplishment. So either as a loan officer or as a realtor, these are tried and true, well-tested tips on how to better attain goals. Let me ask you a question that you may or may not have thought of before. What do you think are some key characteristics of people who are the most successful in life? Or better yet, what are some of the best predictive indicators of somebody who has had a ton of success? 1, IQ. 2, self-control. 3, demographics, and what I mean by that is your age, your race. Or 4, education. I'll give you a minute to pause. I'll play the Jeopardy music if I had it. But for those of you who guessed self-control, you are correct. And in terms of self-control, let's also give it the name of willpower. So let me talk a little bit about the science of willpower and some statistics that might surprise you. First and foremost, willpower is a better predictor of academic success than IQ. A matter of fact, it's a better predictor of academic success by a factor of 2, meaning those who have willpower are twice as likely to be successful as those who simply rely on their IQ. Interesting. The second point I'll make is willpower is a stronger determinant of effective leadership than charisma. So much for that, Tony Robbins. The third point I'd like to make is willpower is more important for marital bliss than empathy. Now, a lot of you might laugh at that, but the reality of it is, and you'll see as we go through this presentation, is that if you lack the willpower to control your emotions, very often that's going to affect your marital life. In fact, there have been many surveys that have suggested that those with significant marital problems have given so much of themselves at work that when they get home, their emotions are sitting on sort of a knife's edge. So without willpower, you lack marital empathy and you lack some issues probably. Willpower is also a better predictor of financial wealth than income level. So let me repeat that. Willpower is a better predictor of financial wealth or health than your income level. There are any number of sports figures, entertainers, and politicians who have achieved financial wealth but have given it up through a lack of willpower, whether it be Mike Tyson, Darryl Strawberry, Elton John, Billy Joel, Michael Jackson. You've heard all these names. These are folks who have accumulated a large financial wealth, but have given it all up for a lack of willpower. So in conclusion, and to be brief, self-discipline, self-control, willpower, whatever you want to call it, is at the center of all personal and material success. So the next question is, where did I get all this information from? Well, I'm certainly not going to take credit, so I want to give credit where credit is due. Most of what I'm referring to today has come from a gentleman named Roy Baumeister in a phenomenal book called Willpower. I'll point it up on the screen for you, but I'd encourage you to read it if you're interested. There are also a couple other books, The Willpower Effect, Spark, and Superhuman by Habit. All of these are phenomenal books, but the seminal work on this was done by Roy Baumeister, and you can find it in his book, Willpower. So moving along, let's see if we can now narrow this in a little bit. So why do most people in this audience fail at some of their goals? So let me ask you all a question, and be honest. How many of you have set goals for yourselves that you've never accomplished? And if you're being honest, everyone in that room should be raising their hand right now. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that most people set goals and they simply don't achieve many of them? Well, the reality of the situation is that it's a function of a lack of self-control or willpower to execute upon completion. And when I say upon completion, many of you have started goals, many of you have taken steps towards them, whether it be work-related, weight-related, relationship-related, but you've given up. And in all likelihood, the science tells us that you've given up due to a lack of willpower. So let me give you a couple of observations. So where does the power in willpower come from? Well, for you medical students out there, you'll know the answer. It comes from something called glucose. Glucose is also known as blood sugar. So 3 quick things you need to know about glucose that'll help you gain a better understanding. The first thing is that glucose is the brain's only source of energy. Food is broken down into glucose, which then enters the bloodstream, is converted into energy that powers your brain. Simple enough. Think of it as the cord, the power cord that is hooked up to the CPU, that is your computer. Without the power cord, it doesn't function. The second thing is the brain is approximately 2% of your body weight and yet consumes about 20 to 25% of the energy the body takes in. Think about that. 2% of your body weight is consuming about 20 or 25% of the energy required to move yourself forward in life. So what does that tell you intuitively? It tells you that you'd better be careful about what you're putting into your body, and you better make sure that during difficult times of stress or times when you're trying to accomplish certain goals, you are providing that your brain the proper energy to be successful. And the third thing I'll highlight for you is that behavior and willpower are directly and positively correlated with the ebbs and flows of the blood sugar in your body. So I want to repeat that. Your behavior and your ability to accomplish goals are directly related to the ebbs and flows of blood sugar within your system. And what should that tell you? It means that there are certain things you should and should not do during the day. There are certain ways you should and should not refuel yourself. And we're going to touch on those. And my hope is that at the end of this session, you'll have a better understanding of what is driving your behaviors. So the million-dollar question is, what happens to your brain when your glucose level gets low? Well, first and foremost, your brain shifts from some activities to other activities. Now let me be more specific about that. And I'll use an example in this instance. Let's assume for a moment that you are trying to figure out a complicated math problem. Say you're trying to multiply 160 times 12. For many of you, you'll be able to do that either with a pen and paper or some of you in your head. But now imagine you're trying to do that as you hold your breath underwater. For the first few seconds, you're going to be fine probably. But as your body is depleted of more and more oxygen, your brain's energy is going to shift from your ability to focus on complex calculations to simply preserving oxygen throughout the body. The same thing occurs with glucose and your brain's energy level. Your brain may be depleted of glucose, but it doesn't stop working. It just focuses more on the autonomic nervous system. So as the brain uses glucose to exercise self-control, it starts to crave things to eat. Now, many of you will recognize this as a sugar craving or a food craving. And interestingly enough, and unfortunately for all of us, the best way to get immediate glucose is through sugars. Sugar that you'll find in candy or chocolate is a big one, immediately gets turned into glucose and immediately powers the brain. The problem with that is sugar, as many of you are probably aware, isn't a long-lasting substitute for glucose. Sugar burns very quickly, and you need more and more of it, which unfortunately then leads to weight gain, which leads to you not feeling so good and obviously not accomplishing what I'm sure is everyone's goal at one point or another, weight loss. So there are better ways to do it, and that's a discussion for another day. But you can imagine it comes from lean proteins and things of that nature, whether it be chicken or steak, things that burn lower and longer over time. So remember what you're eating. Feel yourself getting a drain of willpower. Feel yourself understand they need some glucose. Make the smart decision. Don't binge on chocolate. Find something a little bit healthier to eat. Vegetables, chicken, things of that nature. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple more points here. The first I want to make is that willpower is like any other muscle in your body. The more you exercise it, the more willpower you have. Studies have shown this over and over again, that if you exercise willpower, even in the smallest way, you will build willpower over time. Exercises such as sitting up straight in your seat, other exercises such as holding and squeezing a hand grip for as long as you can. You will find that although your posture may get better and your hands may get stronger, it's willpower that will allow you to sit up straighter longer and squeeze that hand grip longer. The other point I want to make is the more willpower you exert, the more glucose or brain energy you are using. This leads to a depletion of energy in particular parts of the brain that are in charge and regulate self-control and lead to poor decision making. And so once again, I'll use the example of food. More often than not, after you've done some difficult work, whether it be a report, you've been showing houses for 6 hours, you've been working on a difficult loan transaction, when you've exercised a lot of brain power, your brain needs to eat. The more willpower you exercise, the more glucose or brain fuel you use. We already reviewed that. But the important point is, this leads to depletion of energy, to specific parts of the brain that matter in self-control, and often leads to poor decision making. Study after study has shown this, and here are some examples of what low glucose levels have done for folks. People with low glucose levels generally tend to shop more impulsively, smoke more, drink more, cheat more, call out of sick more, miss deadlines more, and it increases the severity of problems that already lie within. They are more susceptible to distractions, quicker to anger, quicker to become depressed, and overall make decisions that are not in their own best interest. So we're not talking about bad people here. We're talking about good people who've made some bad decisions, and much of that can be directly traced back to their inability to properly fuel their brain, or I should say certain parts of their brain that control self-regulation and willpower. So, knowing all of this, what are you supposed to do with it? Well, let me give you some do's and don'ts that I hope help you out in the short and long run when you're feeling energy deprived. So, I'm going to take a step back and talk about that. I'm pretty sure each and every person understands what it means by energy deprived. When you're sitting at your computer and you are tired, you feel it coming over you. I certainly felt it a number of times. Matter of fact, I feel it every day. I know you feel it as well. So you need to become more self-aware of what your body and mind is telling you. Okay? So with that in mind, let me give you some examples of some do's and don'ts. Here's an obvious don't. Do not hold a tense meeting after a tough day of decisions. Right? This is going to lead to HR problems, it's going to lead to customer service problems. So try to refrain from that if you're feeling energy depleted. The second thing is, don't engage what could become an argument with a coworker, a borrower, or significant other whenever you are tired or hungry. I like to reference my daughter's mood when she's hungry, and we actually laughingly call it hangry. Here's a good do. Take a short but effective 15-minute mental break during the day, and I'll show you a little bit more in another slide, before trying to focus on a new task or engage in anything requiring restraint. Another don't take a realtor or MLO licensing exam when you're feeling depleted. Again, your brain needs to be powered with the proper energy in order to think properly. Do schedule the tasks that require the most willpower, whether it be prospecting, deep work sessions, early in the morning after breakfast when your glycemic levels are optimized. So I'm going to touch a little bit further on that. After you sleep and after you've eaten, your mind is operating at about 10.5 wave cycles per second, which means you are most susceptible and most energetic to the positive things in your life, and you have the most willpower. Think about it. You've slept for about 6 to 8 hours, hopefully. You've eaten, you are well rested, your brain is fueled up, and you're ready to take on the challenges of the day. So what better time to do it in the morning? And I'm going to elaborate that a little bit further. Here's a good do. When you're tired, sleep. It may sound obvious to you, but tiredness impairs the process of glucose, which weakens decision-making ability. And I might add, so does alcohol. The last point I'll make is eat your way to willpower. And I call that feed the beast. Now what I mean by that is, again, make sure it's proper nutrition, but without the right fuel, your mind will not operate at its optimal capacity. Therefore, another thing you need to be aware of is make sure you are eating and eating properly. Okay, great. Now that you are all masters of powering your brain, what can you do to actually build more willpower? Well, as I said earlier, willpower is very clearly a muscle. Exercising willpower in one area actually seems to increase your willpower in other areas. So for example, if you are exercising willpower in your diet and you are sticking to that, you're going to find that you're also able to exercise willpower easier in other aspects of your life, whether it be your personal relationships or your work relationships. Another great tip is pre-commitment. Now, the obvious pre-commitment example I like to use is if you don't want to eat Oreo cookies, don't put them in your house. If you don't want to buy them, don't go down the aisle in the grocery, because you are forcing yourself to make yet another decision, and at any given time, depending on your state of depletion, you will make that choice. So don't put yourself in a situation to do it. If you don't want to drink alcohol, remove it from your house. If you don't want to eat Oreos, don't buy them. And now let's look at it from the perspective of work. And we'll get into what I call deep work sessions in a few minutes. But if you don't want to be disturbed, put yourself in isolation. Turn off your cell phone. Turn off your email. This is called pre-commitment. And if you commit to removing the obstacles that are going to distract you or cause you to get off goal, that's a very easy step to help you accomplish that. The other point, or the last point I'll make on this, which I hope you find interesting, is the power of meditation. I know when I mention meditation, I've seen audiences that tend to roll their eyes. I'm not talking about some Buddhist monk where you're spending 4 hours a day in darkness and isolation. I'm talking about scientifically proven assistance that meditation provides, even if it's 3 to 5 minutes a day. Here are some meditation facts I think you'll find very interesting. Just 3 hours of meditation has scientifically shown to better increase focus of individuals. Now, if you can extend it out to 11 hours, there's clear improvements being shown in focus and brain activity. And after 8 weeks, if you dedicate a little bit of time, 5 or 10 minutes per day, over an 8-week period, research has shown that it actually increases the gray matter in your frontal cortex. So not only does meditating help with willpower, it also increases the part of the brain that will help you solve more difficult problems. So why would you not at least give it a try? So the results of all that are begin to use self-control, not to get through crises as they occur, but to avoid them. And I want to repeat that one statement. If you take the actions that we've outlined just now, these are activities that will help you avoid crisis in the first place rather than crisis management, which most people often default to. All right, so let's play a little game now. So what strategies can you employ in order to increase your willpower when you're feeling a little weak or a little stressed? Okay, so call it out if you'd like, but here's the first one. Which do you think would be more effective, exercising or video games? Hopefully you said exercising. Meditating or gambling? Meditating. Music or shopping? Music. Reading or rumor mongering? Hope that gave you a chuckle. Reading. Drinking and eating or focusing on some hobbies? Clearly hobbies. Smoking or praying / meditating? Praying and meditating. Surfing the internet or Facebook? Hopefully some of you realize that's a trick question. Neither. Matter of fact, they've both been seen to be incredibly anti-productive, especially when we have so much to focus on in this industry. So as best as possible, and I know there are some folks out there saying Facebook for business, but it's rarely confined to that. But please try to limit your time, both surfing and on Facebook. All of these things are little tricks that you can employ in order to reduce your stress during the day. So again, it gets back to understanding your body, understanding the signals you're getting, and these are just some simple tricks or life hacks in order to get yourself out of that state. You're feeling a little stressed, you're feeling a little depleted, what do? You're going to look for a positive form of glucose. You're going to take a little break. And some of the things you can do is you can do some very light exercising. You can meditate. You can listen to some music. You can read. You can work on a hobby for 5 or 10 minutes. You can pray if that's your thing. And please avoid social media because that is not relaxing. That is not where your mind is. You may think it's relaxing, but your mind does not view it as relaxing. It's drawing more willpower, and willpower you probably need to complete your goals for the day. So how can I use this knowledge to create what I call a masterpiece day, one day at a time? Well, the first thing I really want to talk about is to start your morning the right way. If you remember earlier, I said your mind vibrates at a higher frequency in the morning, and therefore it's much more susceptible to the first few inputs that come your way. So what does that mean? It means start your morning right and in a positive fashion. And I'll touch bases on that a little bit more. So plan at night for the day ahead. Now, what I really want to say is your next day actually starts at night, the previous night, and I'll touch on that in just a moment as well. Time blocking, I'm sure you've all heard this before, but it's incredibly important for your success. And the final way you create a masterpiece day is what I call deep work sessions. So let me jump right into that. And on the screen, you're going to see what I call a masterpiece day template. So as I said, there's some steps you're going to take the night before, but I'm going to start with what your morning looks like. So there's a great expression that I repeat to myself often. It's win the first hour of the day and you win the day. So I'm going to give you your first hour of the day. So first and foremost, as I mentioned, you need to get yourself in a positive mindset. There's any number of ways you can do that, but I would really recommend you move away from the alarm clock. That's probably not the best way for you to wake up. You should be waking up to something that is inspirational, something that is happy. There are a number of videos on YouTube that can help get you motivated. It could be your favorite song, but again, think of your brain when you wake up as a clean canvas. Whatever you put on there first is the base. And if you don't set yourself up properly from that minute on, you're setting yourself for more challenges later in the day. So the second thing I'd like you to do is to just take a moment to say what you are thankful for. And it's simple as it says on the screen. Today, I'm thankful or grateful for what? We'll talk about gratitude a little bit more, but without a doubt, putting yourself in a grateful mindset gives you a much greater appreciation for everything around you. Now you're going to review the question, what is my one thing for today, and how will I measure if I am winning? Last but not least, start out with a morning affirmation. Here's one for you. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And last but not least, you're going to dive in to a 50-minute deep work session. And I'm going to explain in a moment what a deep work session is. That, in totality, took 1 hour. So within 1 hour, or the first hour of your day, you have set yourself in a positive mindset, and you've completed 50 minutes of focused work at the optimal point of the day where your mind is best suited to tackle the biggest challenges. Okay, so let's take a look at night. Now at night, I'm only asking for 15 minutes of your time to prepare for the next day. As I said earlier, your day begins the previous night. So by preparing your one thing, it allows you to step into your day the moment you wake up. So you can start by asking yourself, what are 3 things in my life that I'm grateful for today? Maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and it should be very easy for you to rattle off. And I would challenge you that the more you think about the things you should be grateful for, the more you will be grateful for them. The second exercise, how could I have made today better for others? And again, this gets to a greater appreciation of the folks in your life. Take a moment and think about yesterday. How many times has someone done something, no matter how trivial it is, that you should have been thankful for? Did someone hold a door open for you? Did someone answer a question you needed answering? Did someone help you with a problem? I would be surprised if the answer to that was no. Recognize those people mentally. What didn't work for me today? Again, take a look. What are some of the things that I wanted to do that didn't work? And take a critical look at yourself. This is not time to beat yourself up, as I have on the board. It's only 1 to 2 minutes. But it's a real opportunity for you to say, how could I have been better today? What is my one thing for tomorrow? And you need to write it in such a way so that I will do X as evidenced by Y. So let me give you an example. And this doesn't need to be complicated. You can say, I plan to build a listing presentation today. So in order to build a listing presentation, there are probably 2 or 3 things you would need to do in order to get that accomplished. What are those 2 or 3 things? Clarity is key. The more you are clear on what your goals are and you delineate what success is, the more likely you are to accomplish it. So the next step would be to list 3 things you can do, list them, that will help you accomplish your goals for today. And some examples could be, I'm going to get into the office an hour early, I'm going to shut my door, and I'm not going to open it until I complete it. Again, this doesn't need to be complicated. We're not reinventing the wheel here. You're simply setting yourself up for success. And a very easy way to do that is to be very clear on what your goals are, very clear on what success is, and very clear on the pre-commitment levels you're going to make in order to ensure that you hit those goals. So now I'm going to circle back and talk about what we call deep work. Deep work is actually the ultimate pre-commitment strategy whereby you are going to put yourself in a situation where you can focus when your mind is at its optimal state on the tasks at hand. So what are some rules of engagement for deep work? Well, first off, I wouldn't try to do deep work for hours at a time. Our lives certainly not built for that, certainly not in this industry, and the mind isn't built for long sessions of deep work either. So initially, as you see in the Masterpiece Day template, I've only allocated 50 minutes of deep work for your win the first hour of the day. So the human mind is pretty good at focusing for about 45 to 90 minutes. We've allocated for 50 minutes. So each morning in your initial deep work session, stay focused in lockdown while your mind is at its optimal state, and we call that a deep work session. The other thing I'll note is that deep work sessions, they can roll into one another with breaks. You could do a 50-minute deep work session, and then you can jump into what I call the whirlwind of the day. You can do another one an hour later. It can be for 15 minutes. But the key thing I would note, at least in this strategy, is to focus your deep work sessions in the morning and focus some activities at night. Again, 1 hour in the morning, 15 minutes at night, simply to begin the process. And you can expand upon it as you have more and more success. The last point I'll make is an ultimate goal. So some of the folks who have been doing deep work sessions for some period of time can commit as much as 4 hours a day to deep work. That may or may not be your life. Again, this strategy is designed to give you an hour in the day, and then there's a recognition that for the rest of the day, if you are in the real estate industry, you are in what I call the whirlwind of the day. There are any number of things that are going to distract you during the whirlwind of the day. Walkthroughs, closings, agreements, meetings, new clients, etc. And we call that the whirlwind of the day because that's exactly what it is. For us to think that you're going to be able to commit to 4 or 5 hours of deep work in lockdown is not reasonable. But this strategy is designed to get you to power out some of the most difficult work, your one thing early in the day, and some strategies to make sure that it occurs the next day. And again, that happens the night before. So let me talk to you on a personal level about the connections between willpower, this Masterpiece Day template, and goal completion. So last year, I set a goal for myself, and I called it 18 for 18. Basically, I had 18 goals for the year of 2018. So what did I learn from that? Well, first and foremost, you cannot have 18 goals unless you break them down into what I call micro goals. So each goal had a series of micro goals, and each micro goal wound up being part or all of a particular deep work session on any given day. Now, I understand that, like everyone else, I have my moments of weakness, so I've been much more cognizant as to what I'm feeling mentally, physically, and emotionally, and I have some tips and strategies on how to deal with that, and it's been tremendously helpful. I also understand, as I mentioned earlier, that the whirlwind of the day is going to take me away and often take me to places that I'm not prepared for. Having said that, during the whirlwind of the day, and once again, I'm fully aware of the mind and physical state that I am in, and I make sure I take steps to put myself in the best position possible to solve those problems. And the last trick I will tell you, and what I found the most difficult, wasn't the first hour of the morning. You will see when you wake up to a positive video, a positive song, you do an affirmation, you talk about what you're grateful for in life, you can jump into a deep work session. Your mind and body are primed for that to occur. What I had the most difficulty was just at 15 minutes at night. And that's because by the end of a long day, you are tired. And the last thing you want to do is open up even if it's 15 minutes of journaling. But it's important to remember that is what is setting the stage for you to be more successful. Again, you want to be able to step into your tomorrow by completing that quick 15-minute journal. So for me, what I did was I sat down, I got myself settled, I made sure I had a meal, and when I felt like I had a little bit more energy, I would bang it out, and it turned out to be a hugely successful process for me. One of the things that I did, you have to be a little bit brave for this one, but one of the things that I did that really motivated me was I shared my 18 goals for 2018 with a bunch of people that I'm close with. Now, that does a couple of things. One, you find that the people who really care about you are helping to push you along, and it gives you a number of accountability partners. Two, it is unbelievably motivating to know that there are people out there who are watching you. Basically, people want to see you succeed. And when you publish your goals, you're going to push yourself harder to complete them. Again, a personal experience. It might not be for everyone, but it's an incredibly powerful thing. Again, repeat this every night before bed. As I say, wash, rinse, repeat, and crush goals. So I'd very much like to thank you for participating in today's Lunch and Learn. I hope you learned something from it. The presentation will be available for you to look through. And as I said before, if you're looking for an accountability partner, feel free to send me your goals. I will take a look at them. I will respond to you, and I will cheer you on. Thank you very much for your partnership with Annie Mac and Annie Mac Works. I hope this year brings you everything you want it to bring. And I would say that if you follow this methodology, it almost certainly will end better than without it.